welcome back. It's Paula again, and continuing on the topic of risk management and liability, let's talk about 3 things that a board can do to protect itself. So the first one we've touched on, but this is the concept of insurance and indemnification. And so the board ensures that through management, appropriate insurance is purchased that covers the organization operations and also the board's liability. So this can be directors and officers and directors insurance, it can be errors and omissions insurance, or any of a number of insurances, and I am not an insurance professional, so this is where we bring the experts in from the whole area of corporate liability and get to really mine down and understand that. So we purchase insurance, and by the way, when you leave a board, you're still responsible for decisions that were made while you were on the board. So even if the board has done something, let's suppose you dismissed an employee, and then 2 years later, if the wrongful dismissal lawsuit gets to court, there is still an expectation that the board at the time of the dismissal is in fact collectively liable. Now, this is where the insurance is really important, because when I say that, your stomach is probably going to do a little, backflip and think, oh, seriously? I'm going to be liable for that even though I haven't been on the board for 2 years? Well, guess what? The probability is if the lawsuit goes forward, money will change hands. 99% of our wrongful dismissal lawsuits, I'm saying 99, I don't know that number exactly, but probably 95 to 99% of wrongful dismissal lawsuits, particularly in Canada, never get to court. They get settled for money. The money is usually paid out by the organization, not by insurance, because the insurance claim would probably cause the organization to lose its liability for the liability insurance. So very much organizations tend to pay for whatever severance or settlement is required. So as a result, insurance protects the organization from having to pay out legal fees if a lawsuit is successfully tried. If you settle it, then you're going to pay for those things yourself. So comprehensive general liability insurance is purchased on behalf of the board, employees, and volunteers. By all means, make sure that you have your insurance professional once every year, once every 2 years, depending on how much turnover you've had on the board. Have that person come and do a presentation of what you're covered for, what amount you're covered for, what does that coverage in fact include. Very important that we have that happen so that we get wiser and better educated in this whole area. The second thing you can do for protection is diligence by members, and we talked about the 3 fiduciary duties. Preparation and participation are absolutely critical here. You do not reduce your liability. In fact, you increase the risk if you are not ready and don't ask good questions, and therefore might make a decision which is a bad decision, but because nobody bothered to challenge it, nobody bothered to read the stuff you've been set up, nobody bothered to table a motion that said let's do some more research before we make this decision. When things run amok and the board has defaulted on its responsibilities, the whole ugly liability piece begins to pop up and rears its ugly head. So we need to make sure also that we offer solutions and opinions to things that are happening. Express those freely, and if you're chairing the board, do what I call run the room or run the table. Go from board member to board member to board member all the way around the table and say 1 minute to each person or 1 comment from each person. And first of all, that helps board members who tend to be maybe a little bit more shy, a little more introverted, a little reluctant to speak because they're new. It really helps board members find their voice, and it says, hey, I actually said something in the board meeting, and it actually, there's a lot of nods when I said that, right? So it really helps board members feel that their contributions are valid, their concerns are real, and that it finds their voice and invites them to participate again when another issue comes forward that needs conversation. And so remind yourself that we want a motion that supports any major decisions, particularly things that have money involved, and anything that is engaging in the whole area of dismissals. And remind yourself, boards do not approve dismissals of employees. The executive director approves the dismissal, but the board will be aware, because the executive director will tell the board, a good executive director will tell the board, hey, we did a dismissal. The person has a week to decide to accept or not the severance that we are offering. They have a week to seek legal counsel, and I'm just informing you because there may be some liability or some risk exposure here. That should not strike fear in your heart unless your board has not looked at the HR policies and said, you have to have them. Secondly, you have to have good dismissal policies, and the executive director will bring those policies forward once every 2 or 3 years, giving you the updated version of that. So the board's oversight responsibility to trust but verify is to say, what are our policies on this and what are the things that we have to do? Do not put your fingers in. Ask accountability related questions, not meddlesome questions. So we have a responsibility in our diligence, our portfolio, if you will, to be acting with integrity, honesty, and in good faith. Okay, and we need to make sure that we fully discharge the duties that are outlined in the bylaws and the governance policies. So key number 3 is the whole area of ensuring your board has effective processes at meetings and in the way they go about doing their work. And the first one is to make sure that board meetings and committee meetings are really well managed. So by all means, do some chairperson training. I have a module in this series that's about meeting management, so make sure you pay special attention to that if you're a chair of a committee or a chair of a board. Make sure that the minutes are accurate, and make sure that when you approve those minutes that you have actually read them. Very common for board members to say, motion to approve the minutes, seconded, all in favor, nobody puts up their hands. And so you know what, that's not quite the way we want it to flow. Is that, did everybody have a chance to review the minutes? Were there any errors or omissions or corrections to the minutes? And let one of your board members who's the English teacher, present or retired, the detail person, your finance person, whoever those people are on your board, there's always 1 or 2 or 3 board members who love detail. Let them be your barometer for watching the details of that and say, you know what, I don't think we got that quite right in the minutes, or we left out this piece, or I don't think that motion read the way we actually had it. So any of those things can be fixed in the minutes, but make sure that you're doing due diligence around those things. The second one is to make motions properly, second them properly, and vote on them, and make sure that you record the vote properly and use Robert's Rules of Order abridged. The full Robert's Rules is huge. Don't bother with it. You'll never find anything, but the abridged document is really quite easy. Keep an electronic copy or a paper copy. You can get them in paperback as well. Keep it in the boardroom where meetings are usually held, so that if there's any question for the chair or any other member about right protocol, then in fact it can be challenged and it can be reviewed. Now, just a little reminder, the proper order of things when you know you have to make a decision on something, if it's just for discussion, you don't do this. If an agenda item is just for discussion, don't do this. But if you know there's a decision coming in, you make the motion, you second the motion, and then you hold the discussion. And then when the chair feels that sufficient discussion and all perspectives and questions have been asked and answered, then he or she calls the question, which means asks the members to vote. All in favor. If you need to amend the motion, you don't have to rescind the old motion. You simply, I would amend the original motion to read. The secretary notes that the motion was amended, and then the seconder, usually the same seconder, chimes in with the seconding of the amended motion, and then you vote. So that's the right order of things, and very often that's not what we do. We have big conversations, then we do motion, then we do second, then we do vote. Robert's Rules will tell us that that's kind of the backwards way of doing things. In-camera sessions of the board have to be used appropriately, and you've heard me talk about that if you've watched that module. And what's really important is to make sure that we record minutes to our in-camera session. In-camera does not mean off the record. In-camera sessions are usually part of in-session board meetings, so we're not adjourned the board meeting, so we have some part of our board meeting, then we have an in-camera session, then we have the end of our board meeting, and so it is sandwiched by board meeting, and the board is in session for that entire time, and minutes must be taken. The minutes from an in-camera session should be put into an envelope, sealed, and the signature of the recording secretary put onto the seal. The minutes should on the outside say in-camera session of the Board of Directors of ABC organization and the date of that particular meeting. You can store those in the minute book if you want, because they're fairly secure, or you can store them in another secured location. There's no reason why minutes can't be with minutes, particularly since there's no ability to open the minutes. The people can open those minutes are officers of the court, your auditor, and anybody otherwise appointed by a motion of the board to open the minutes. You need to make sure that the board is planning for orderly succession of leadership and that you adhere to your term limits. Normal term limits: 2 3-year terms, 3 2-year terms, sometimes 3 3-year terms. But whatever it is in your bylaws or your governance policies, that is the rule. So your duty of obedience says your board must have some healthy turnover. You also want to do succession planning for your leadership positions. And stay tuned for a module that actually deals with board recruitment, nomination process, and also all of the business of ensuring we have leadership succession on our board. All right, let's finish this off then with, do you actually need a risk management committee? You probably don't need any more committees, but this is one that should be at least an ad hoc committee if you don't have risk management policies or a risk management plan in place. So this usually requires a combined board and senior staff, and sometimes some program staff or mid-level supervisory staff on the committee, because what we want to do is we want to have conversations around whole organization risk, not just board risk on this side and operational risk on this side. So it's an educational process. It's really cool for board members to hear more about the operations of the organization while we're building out our risk management plan. Generally ad hoc. You can create a standing committee if you want that standing committee to continue to mine down and build out your plan. So you might start with 5 areas or 10 areas of risk that are priorities, and that committee might continue to year over year build out the other parts of that. Don't make this a binder this thick. That is not going to help you manage risk. It's going to mean almost guarantee that nobody's ever going to read the stuff that's in it. Keep it light, keep it agile, keep it graphic rather than words. Put white pages, space on your pages, put things in bullet form rather than in closed paragraphs of text that people are disinclined to read. And so if you want a standing committee that will continue to work on that, that's an entirely appropriate choice for the board to make. All right, here's your turn. And this is your learning assignment. So look at each of those 3 key areas that are in your handout, and then identify what's the board doing now that's really best practice. Where are we really strong? And then secondly, what are some of the improvements that we could be made in each of the key areas? And then the second point is that how will your board take action on improving what it identifies that addresses potential areas for liability? What do you think your priorities are? Who will do what by when? Fancy language is called an action plan. So I want you to start this process. If this is something you have well in hand, then you might want to send me an email, because I'm always looking for templates and examples of risk management plans, because I get questions from my consulting clients and people who are watching these videos, and they say to me, can I see kind of just for format or for layout how this might look when we're done one? So by all means, fire me off one if you need one. I have 1 or 2 sitting in a folder on my laptop, so just send me an email to Paula MacLean at learningforleaders.ca and I'll send you one back. All right, that brings us to the end of the risk management and liability module. I hope that you have enjoyed it. I hope I brought it to life in some small way. There's lots more to learn. Make sure, and I'll remind you again, that you consult your insurance professionals, your legal professionals, and consultants and advisors who work in this whole area. It's a very specific area of agency life, and there's always lots to learn. So I'm going to say bye for now until the next module, and we will see you again soon. Take care.